Chapter 2394. How would they deal with him? Chapter 2394. How would they deal with him? Although Qingzhou City had already disappeared, the history of Yi Futian's development could not be wiped away. In the 9 states, if one really wanted to investigate, they would be able to find out that he was born in Qingzhou City. If it were just his place of birth, it wouldn't be worthy of suspicion. However, his growth, gifts, and the status that Yusheng had today, all of it pointed to an extraordinary background. Furthermore, when he was cultivating in the 9 states, there were details and hints that led others to speculate that he was related to Emperor Yi Qing. Of course, this relation couldn't be proven because Qingzhou City had already vanished. Other than Yu Xing, Jiyu, and his teacher Hua Fenglu, no one knew about his secrets. As such, the most they could do was to speculate. As for his true origin, it was even less likely that people would find out about it since he himself didn't even know. Well then, who knew? Why did Emperor Yi Qing treat him that way back then? What was the relationship between them? The people who spread the rumors out there clearly had ulterior motives. In the Divine Prefecture, Emperor Yi Qing was taboo. The same went for the original realm. Even a statue of Emperor Yi Qing wouldn't be tolerated, let alone someone related to him. Clearly, the person who spread the rumor wanted to use the imperial palace's power to destroy him. What situation would he be facing after this? He had no way of knowing. Dong Huang the Great was a prodigy of the era. He had united the land of the Divine Prefecture and driven the path of martial arts to flourish. Ignoring all else and just focusing on Dong Huang the Great himself, he was an unparalleled, marvelous individual. But how would he deal with people and things that had anything to do with Emperor Yi Qing? One could roughly guess based on what happened to Snow 8 back then. Emperor Yi Qing was a taboo figure in the Divine Prefecture. No one dared to mention him. Perhaps it was because he was taboo in the eyes of Dong Huang the Great, and no one dared to provoke him. Fang Gai looked toward Yi Futian after he'd told him about the situation. Yi Futian had been calm all along. It seemed that he was thinking about something. At this moment, Fang Gai realized that the rumors out there could actually be real. Yi Futian was actually related to Emperor Yi Qing. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so calm now and not even say a word. No wonder. Fang Gai sighed. It was no wonder Yi Futian's talents were almost unmatched in this era, regardless of whether it was Four Corner Village or out in the world, or when facing the inheritance of great emperors. On every occasion, he had displayed unbelievable talent. It was as though receiving the inheritance of great emperors was as simple as grabbing something from his own pocket. All of it could be easily cracked and understood. Fang Gai had long thought that Yi Futian's talents, which saw nearly no limit, were possibly owed to an extraordinary background. But he didn't expect that it would be because he was related to Emperor Yi Qing. If it were true, was it even possible for the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace to let him off? At this moment, Fang Gai was greatly concerned for Yi Futian. This was different from antagonizing the various forces of the Divine Prefecture. While those forces all wanted to deal with Yi Futian, they weren't united, and Yi Futian fended them off with just one battle at the Heavenly Mandate Academy. But if the Imperial Palace wanted to deal with them, they would be powerless. The entire land of the Divine Prefecture had to follow the orders of the Imperial Palace. Just then, a divine light of space flashed from the great matrix of inheritance inside the Imperial Palace. It was followed by waves of powerful auras that quickly spread out in the area. A group of powerful cultivators dashed through the air from afar. These were Devil World cultivators. It was Yu Xing arriving with reinforcements. Yu Xing knew the most about Yi Futian's identity. He knew almost everything about Yi Futian. After he'd received the news, he immediately came over to see Yi Futian. Yu Xing. Yi Futian saw that Yu Xing was coming and called out to him. Yu Xing landed directly beside Yi Futian. He looked at the people around them. "We should go for a walk," Yi Futian said. The two of them left and came to the top of a building. "You can come to the Devil World with me," Yu Xing said to Yi Futian. After he'd heard the news, he came right away intending to bring Yi Futian back to the Devil World. Once Yi Futian entered the Devil World and was under the aegis of the Devil Emperor, even Dong Huang the Great wouldn't find it easy to deal with him. Furthermore, with Yi Futian's talents, he would be greatly valued even in the Devil World. Yi Futian didn't answer. His gaze extended far into the distance. From Qingzhou City back then till now, there was an invisible hand controlling everything, including the path of his growth. Where would his godfather be now? Who was he and who was Yu Sheng? His godfather must know the answers to all of this. He didn't come out to stop all this from happening. Perhaps this wasn't a dead end. Yu Sheng, have you thought that if even you already received the news and came here, how is it possible that the cultivators over at the Imperial Palace don't know yet? Yi Futian said, if they really wanted to do anything to me, naturally, they would already be monitoring here. I don't think it's that simple. It could even infuriate those on their side. Rather than leave, it's better for us to watch and see what happens. Let's observe what the Imperial Palace will do. You're going to admit it? Yu Sheng looked toward Yi Futian. Even someone as calm and steadfast as him was getting a little nervous. This whole thing would have too great an implication. It could cause the doom of Yi Futian. He couldn't keep his cool. Did you know that back then in the 9th state, I met Princess Donghuang several times? Now that the news has spread, how is it possible that she can't guess what's happening? Yi Futian said. The first time he met Princess Donghuang was in the Beast Mountain of Qingzhou City. She had been there to capture the snow ape, and he had been there too. If he claimed that that was a coincidence because he was from Qingzhou, what happened afterward would verify that it was unlikely to be a mere coincidence. As long as the people from the Imperial Palace investigated it, they would find many clues that would lead to the truth. The next time they saw each other, Princess Donghuang brought Mr. Du of the cottage away. It was nearly impossible to hide all of this. How are you going to admit it? Yu Sheng asked. Yi Futian looked toward him and answered, because of a coincidence, I encountered Emperor Yi Qing's remnant soul while I was sightseeing in the Beast Mountains of Qingzhou City. I was then enlightened by his teachings. It was now impossible to claim that they were totally unrelated, but saying it this way would already explain many things. The statement could be understood differently. The remnant soul's teachings could be just advice, or it could be an inheritance. Yu Sheng's brows were locked tight together. Would the Imperial Palace really let Yi Futian go just by saying that? But at the very least, they could not admit that there was any other form of relationship between Yi Futian and Emperor Yi Qing. It could only be an accidental encounter at Qingzhou City. If there were any other connections between them, it would be even less likely that the Imperial Palace would let Yi Futian go. It's the best that we can do, Yi Futian said softly. Everything else would be up to fate. This was the problem that he was worried about all along. There was bound to be one day where some traces of his past would resurface and expose him, but he didn't expect those from the divine prefecture to be the ones behind it. He didn't even know who intentionally revealed the news, but he knew that it had been done with truly vicious intentions. Outside, cultivators from all across the world rushed toward the Ziwei segmentum. Yi Futian turned out to be related to Emperor Yi Qing. Naturally, they would want to see how things would be resolved. At this time, outside the Ziwei segmentum, in the boundless space of void, the most powerful organizations of the divine prefecture had already arrived. They were unable to pass through the teleportation grand matrix, so they had to fly over. They stood atop the celestial skies and looked over at the Ziwei segmentum. This whole segmentum was the legacy of a great emperor who stood at the apex of the ancient era. Today, it was controlled by Yi Futian. However, the vicissitude of the situation was certainly unexpected. Yi Futian was said to be related to Emperor Yi Qing. The Imperial Palace probably wouldn't let this slip. This phenomenal cultivator, who had risen from the heavenly mandate realm, made a name all across the divine prefecture and even attracted the attention of various apex cultivators, would have his life threatened. How would the Imperial Palace deal with Yi Futian? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2395. Confrontation. Chapter 2395. Confrontation. Ziwei Imperial Palace. At the peak of Ziwei Temple, there was a terrifying starry pattern, much like a grand matrix that was connected to the firmament. At this moment, there was a man sitting cross-legged, clad in all white and with white hair. It was none other than Yi Futian. His eyes closed tightly. In his mind, an infinite spatial world appeared, and a world presented itself. This world was populated with numerous cultivators, who were all busy and cultivating. In this picture, there were some places where the imageries were clearer than others. Many figures materialized. It was as if they were not far away from him, and they seemed to be coming to where he was. At the same time, inside the imperial palace, a group of people burst out and levitated into the air, heading outside. Gradually, many powerful auras permeated from a distance. Among them were many major figureheads who had survived the divine tribulation of the Great Path. Their auras were mighty as they approached this magnificent imperial palace and stopped just outside of it, above the firmament. Their eyes focused on the area in front of them as their divine consciousness swept inside. Many of these top figures seemed to have no qualms in doing so. It seemed as if they didn't care at all what place this was. However, after they arrived, they didn't act rashly but remained perched there. Gradually, more and more forces arrived closer to Ziwei Imperial Palace. The Ziwei Imperial Palace was vast, but the cultivators who were cultivating here were not ordinary either. When their divine consciousness was released, they could cover a massive space in an instant, including the entire Ziwei Imperial Palace. For them, distance was not a familiar concept. Many cultivators in Ziwei Imperial Palace were also in the sky above, keeping watch with cold and indifferent gazes. These people were rude enough. They had descended directly on the Imperial Palace. You have come here uninvited. What is it that you want? Renhuang Qin stood high above the sky and queried coldly. Not long ago, there was a similar scenario that took place at the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Could this be a repeat of that situation? Nothing at all. We are just here to marvel at the world created by Ziwei the Great, someone responded calmly. They stood at a distance and didn't seem to want to gain entry into the Imperial Palace. It seemed as if they were here purely as onlookers. Renhuang Qin couldn't say much when he heard the reply. They had not tried to enter by force, so what could he do? And in terms of strength, there were supreme existences who had survived the second divine tribulation of the Great Path, so that even if he were to make a move, he could not possibly contend with them. In fact, these were not the only ones who had arrived. Yi Futian, above the temple, could perceive that there were several other principalities far away from Ziwei Imperial Palace. They were on their way here. They were not close to Ziwei Imperial Palace yet, but these forces included cultivators from the Dark World, the Empty Divine Realm, and many others. This time, other worlds also took an interest. After all, too much was involved this time. It had to do with Emperor Yi Qing. He was someone who had fought side by side with Donghuang the Great. He was one of the two emperors who had unified Divine Prefecture. If Yi Futian was really his descendant, what would be the significance of this revelation? Yi Futian, whose surname was the same as Emperor Yi Qing's, and the gap in their ages roughly matched up. If so, would Donghuang the Great send someone here to execute Yi Futian? Presumably, an answer would become apparent soon. Outside, mighty cultivators gathered, including cultivators from all sides and cultivators from other worlds and various principalities in the Divine Prefecture. Inside Ziwei Imperial Palace, there were also many who gathered together. Everyone who was associated with Yi Futian had arrived. This included the cultivators from the Lost Clan, the Heavenly Mandate Academy, as well as cultivators from other major principalities in the original realm. They were all waiting with heightened alert. Everyone understood the serious crisis Yi Futian was facing this time may be the most dangerous yet. Many crises in the past had the possibility of being resolved. Even when the forces of the Divine Prefecture were bearing down on them, they had been able to fight against it. However, if the Imperial Palace wanted Yi Futian's life, he may have no choice but to die. There was no one who was not nervous, especially those who were closest to Yi Futian, including Yu Sheng and Hua Jiu. At this moment, in the distance, there was a powerful aura that diffused towards this side. The divine light of the space twinkled, and rays of light illuminated the space. A horrific aura descended. A group of cultivators materialized from the light beam and descended above the firmament, just like a pantheon of gods. She's here, the hearts of all these cultivators trembled. Everyone was waiting for this moment, and it was finally here. Rumors had been circulating in the original realm, so it was impossible that the imperial palace had not heard of them by now, so they must have received the information. And if they knew, it only stood to reason that they would be here sooner rather than later. Indeed, as they turned their eyes, they saw that Princess Donghuang had personally descended upon Ziwei Imperial Palace. That unparalleled figure, like the most revered goddess, was heading towards the Ziwei Imperial Palace. Yi Futian, who had been keeping his eyes closed, had already seen it all. At this moment, he opened his eyes and looked above the firmament. He saw the arrival of the cultivators, led by Princess Donghuang, and the figures behind her were dazzled with divine light. It was as if they were all divine generals. This scenario looked so familiar to Yi Futian. He was experiencing déjà vu. More importantly, he had seen it more than once. On Mount Tianyao in the city of Qingzhou, above the Book Mountain in the eastern Barren Territory. The snow ape and the master had all experienced it. Now it was his turn. The scenario was the same, and the one who came was still Princess Donghuang. The only difference was that the princess had become even more dazzling and radiant, and her cultivation was more terrifying than ever. She was no longer the girl of yesteryear. This time, would the ending be the same as before? Yi Futian didn't know, and no one else knew. Your Royal Highness. Many cultivators from Divine Prefecture bowed to salute her. No matter what level these cultivators were at, they must maintain a certain degree of respect when facing the only daughter of Donghuang the Great. Even those who had survived the divine tribulation of the Great Path dared not exhibit any ego in front of the princess. Princess Donghuang nodded slightly but did not say anything more. Her gaze was fixed in one place, and that was above the temple where Yi Futian was cultivating. At this moment, Yi Futian was sitting without anyone else beside him. He looked so alone. The entire Ziwei Imperial Palace was shrouded in an oppressive aura, and everyone's divine consciousness was focused on one person alone, Yi Futian. However, under the divine consciousness of these top figures, anyone would feel an unparalleled pressure, no matter who they were. But Yi Futian just sat there quietly, with a holy luminescence that seemed to drape over him. When he stood up, his back was straight and seemed to be rooted firmly. No matter what happened, he would face it on his feet. Your Royal Highness. Yi Futian greeted with courtesy and reverence as he bowed slightly. Have you heard about those rumors on the outside? Princess Donghuang asked directly without beating around the bush. I have, Yi Futian replied honestly. He couldn't possibly have denied it. Is there any relationship between Renhuang Yi and Emperor Yi Qing? Princess Donghuang asked, her eyes fixed on him intently. Yi Futian also looked into her eyes and responded, there is. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Yi Futian's voice fell, and the space turned silent. The divine consciousnesses of countless cultivators from Divine Prefecture were fastened on him. Yi Futian's voice fell, and the space turned silent. The divine consciousnesses of countless cultivators from Divine Prefecture were fastened on him. Yi Futian had admitted outright that he had some connection to Emperor Yi Qing. Princess Donghuang, likewise, also focused her attention on the white-haired man who was atop the temple. However, the cultivators from Ziwei Imperial Palace and the Heavenly Mandate Academy were concentrating their attention on her at the moment, and they were a little nervous. The next decision that the princess made would impact Yi Futian's fate. How are you connected? Princess Donghuang questioned. Does Princess remember me? Yi Futian looked at Princess Donghuang and asked. When I was 16, I saw Princess from a distance on the Beast Mountain of Qingzhou City. When he first laid eyes on Princess Donghuang, he felt that there might be a fateful encounter between the two of them. And later, indeed, they met again. But did that encounter refer to the situation they were presently facing? Vaguely, replied Princess Donghuang. I grew up in the city of Qingzhou. I was born an ordinary person who cultivated in Qingzhou Academy for a time. When I was 16, I strayed onto Beast Mountain by mistake and saw a statue. It wasn't until later that I learned that it was taboo in the Divine Prefecture and that the statue was of Emperor Yi Qing. By pure happenstance, I received a trace of Emperor Yi Qing's will, which altered my destiny, and the Snow Ape Emperor surrendered to me. Later, Princess descended with other cultivators, and I witnessed the last battle of the Snow Ape Emperor. It was there that I saw Princess for the first time. Everyone looked at Yi Futian. It seemed that he had inherited the will of Emperor Yi Qing from his youth. This was also a very good explanation as to why he was able to suppress all those genius talents so far and that no one had been able to compete with him. As someone who had inherited the will of a great emperor in his youth, and it was no less than the will of Emperor Yi Qing, he had to be a peerless figure who stood out among everyone in the lower worlds. Therefore, this must have been the basis for Hao Yi Futian's strength and development. Many found his explanation quite believable. Maybe he had omitted some of the details, but the general timeline sounded true enough. As for the rumors that Yi Futian was the heir of Emperor Yi Qing, this possibility could almost be ruled out altogether, especially for those privy to some inside information. As for both of them sharing Yi as the same surname, perhaps it was just a coincidence. Of course, he might also be hiding something. For example, he did not just receive something as simple as a wisp of the great emperor's will. Princess Donghuang stared deeply at him. Her eyes were so profoundly beautiful that it was impossible to discern what she was truly thinking. Is it really just as simple as a wisp of the will? Princess Donghuang asked. Princess, there was only a wisp of will left by Emperor Yi Qing in the statue at the time. Otherwise, with the power of a great emperor, why would he stay in Qingzhou City and wait for its destruction? Yi Futian continued, if the princess still doesn't believe me, you can go to Nandu Nation to investigate my birth further. There was no chance that I could be connected with anyone who's a great emperor. Why did Qingzhou City disappear? Princess Donghuang continued, I have no idea what happened after I took my teacher away. I didn't even know that Qingzhou City had disappeared, Yi Futian replied. Princess Donghuang asked several questions in a row. Then ensued another silence. If it was just Yi Futian who had inherited a wisp of Emperor Yi Qing's will, then this matter could go either way. Because it was just the will of Emperor Yi Qing, and only by chance, it all depended on how Princess Donghuang chose to handle the matter. No one spoke. The cultivators from all top forces in the Divine Prefecture only dared to observe in secret darkness from a distance. No one dared to say a word. Emperor Yi Qing was not a topic to be talked about openly. Even if everyone understood what was going on, they couldn't say anything. Next to Princess Donghuang, someone spoke to her via voice transmission, Your Royal Highness, whether what he said is credible or not, you can't let him go. It's better to be safe than sorry. What if there was a deeper connection between Yi Futian and Emperor Yi Qing? If one day Yi Futian were to really step into that legendary realm, what would happen then? Therefore, they might want to kill him unnecessarily than entertain the unthinkable. Princess Donghuang still appeared tranquil. The cultivators from all the worlds looked on in the distance. At this moment, a voice from the dark world spoke up. It was a long time ago when the two emperors turned against each other, and Donghuang the Great raised his hand against Emperor Yi Qing. Now, so many years later, Donghunag Imperial Palace won't spare cultivator who happened to obtain just some trace of Emperor Yi Qing's will by chance? This voice sounded rather sarcastic. The cultivators from the dark world had never disguised their desire of wanting Yi Futian dead, but now they seemed to be speaking up on Yi Futian's behalf, which was somewhat intriguing. Yi Futian, come to the empty divine realm and we will give you a safe haven. At this moment, another voice spoke, and it was a cultivator from the empty divine realm. However, this suggestion was full of bad intentions. Under the circumstances, those from Donghuang Imperial Palace would be more motivated to move against Yi Futian, an unspeakably ruthless scheme. At this moment, a man walked behind Yi Futian and stood there quietly. The man seemed to be dressed in the demonic mail. He had an exceptionally domineering spirit, and it was none other than Yu Sheng. After Yu Sheng made his presence known, a group of cultivators was behind him, protecting him. This time, the people they were facing were not ordinary folks, and the devil world didn't really want Yusheng to intervene. But if Yusheng wanted to make a stance, there was not much they could do. But Yusheng stood there as if to make a statement. It seemed that as soon as Princess Donghuang made the decision against Yi Futian, Yusheng would be the worst enemy Divine Prefecture had ever seen, no matter the cost to himself. Princess Donghuang glanced at Yusheng, then looked back at Yi Futian and asked, "You said you received the will of Emperor Yi Qing. So, who is he exactly?" The cultivators from the Divine Prefecture had thought of this as well. If Yi Futian explained his own origin, then what about Yusheng? Obviously, this was an oversight. He was still unable to clearly explain who he really was or where he was from. I am curious to know that too, but perhaps only the Devil Emperor in the Devil world knows the answer. Yi Futian responded. His answer was scoffed at by those from the Divine Prefecture. Clearly, it was less than convincing. And Yi Futian, didn't he know? "Princess, he is lying." Next to Princess Donghuang, the voice transmission asked her, "Did Princess ever know of his existence?" Princess Donghuang nodded slightly. Perhaps Yi Futian was the heir selected by Emperor Yi Qing himself. It cannot be as simple as chance. The person continued via voice transmission. An oppressed aura now enveloped the space. Princess Donghuang looked at Yi Futian and said, "Yes or no? Follow me to the Imperial Palace, and we will sort everything out there." "Yi Futian, would you like to come with us for a little trip?" There was a slight change in Yi Futian's eyes. He was not too clear on what had transpired back then, but if he and Emperor Yi Qing really had some connections, then no matter the kind of person Donghuang the Great was, he would never let him off the hook. Once they found out the secrets he'd been hiding, he would most certainly not be allowed to live. "If Princess doesn't believe me, why waste time taking me with you?" Yi Futian kept his composure and replied, but his heart was getting colder. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 2397, Master of the Segmentum. Chapter 2397, Master of the Segmentum. Yi Futian's reply silenced the space again. He had actually refused a request from Princess Donghuang, declining to follow the princess to the Imperial Palace. "It's finished." In the area surrounding Ziwei Imperial Palace, those cultivators from the Divine Prefecture thought there would be no doubt about the impending conflict. Yi Futian's refusal implied that he may indeed have other secrets and that the Imperial Palace would have no choice but to take action against him. Sure enough, several cultivators stepped out from behind Princess Donghuang. One of them had a frightening aura. They were surrounded by divine light, and it was none other than Du Yu, the Spear Emperor. He was one of the direct disciples of Donghuang the Great, and Yi Futian had seen him in action before. He was exceptionally powerful. Buzz. A godly spear appeared in his hand, puffing out a terrifying light, as he floated towards the temple where Yi Futian was. Clearly, in the eyes of those from the Imperial Palace, Yi Futian's refusal was equivalent to a crime against the princess. Princess Donghuang said nothing. She seemed to be silently condoning the Spear Emperor's action. Behind her, a group of people floated forward, and all of them were releasing a powerful aura, oppressing the Ziwei Imperial Palace. Yi Futian had the support of the cultivators from the Devil world behind him. If they were to join in, a battle would be inevitable. Yusheng took a step forward, and the cultivators from the Devil world followed suit. But the eyes of old Demon Tunshin sharpened. The Devil world had no right to meddle in the matter at hand. To confront the Imperial Palace of Divine Prefecture, in the land of the original realm no less, would be both disadvantageous and foolish. This was really an internal matter within the Divine Prefecture. Apprehend him and take him away. Anyone who dares to interfere with the business of the Imperial Palace will be killed without exceptions. A cold voice came out of a cultivator from the Imperial Palace. The person's aura was beyond horrifying, and he was someone that Yi Futian had never seen before. He was a supreme cultivator who had survived the second divine tribulation of Great Path, a peak existence closest to the level of the Great Emperor. Boom! A wave of demonic might erupted from Yusheng as dark demonic currents tossed and howled. HS dark demonic eyes swept towards Princess Donghuang. "Whoever dares touch him today will have to answer to me." As long as I live, anyone who touches him will die, Yusheng proclaimed. His statement was a cause of concern for the cultivators from the divine prefecture. They frowned but did not stop what they were doing. Rays of divine light showered down to envelop the temple below. This sight was so familiar, Futian felt like he had seen it all before. This time, it was finally his turn. Was his fate the same as the Snow Ape Emperor or as his teacher, Mr. Du? Battle to the death, or be taken away as a prisoner? Yusheng, stand down. What Futian said took Yusheng by surprise. He turned around to look at Futian. The demonic might roared upon him. Stand down. Futian looked at him and repeated himself calmly. If there were to be a fight, he rather let it just be him. There was no need to involve Yusheng. Unless Donghuang the Great comes in person, it won't be easy to take me away, Futian said matter-of-factly. Yusheng watched him and was silent for a few moments, then withdrew. The cultivators from the devil world were still guarding close by. For cultivators from the devil world, whether Futian lived or died was not their concern. Besides, they would really like to see the abilities of Yusheng's brother. After Yusheng and the others backed away, the light of the matrix above the temple lit up suddenly. Then, beams of divine light rushed into the sky, and high above the boundless sky. The scenery seemed to change as if it were being fast-forwarded. The clouds and winds were morphing and surging, akin to changes of nature. The sun and the moon moved in rapid succession, and with a single thought, night had fallen. Above the firmament, a starry sky world came into being. Countless stars were shining like countless pairs of eyes. The starlight fell as if this was the real world, the real Ziwei segmentum. Starlight fell upon Futian, making his long silvery hair appear even more luminous as he bathed in the divine light, standing quietly under the stars. I have never done any evil deeds to the divine prefecture, and I have always defended the original realm. I will not hesitate to fight for the original realm. So, if your Royal Highness still insists on taking me away against my will, I will have no choice but to resist, said Futian. Watching this exchange, people who were closest to the Heavenly Mandate Academy and to Futian felt an immense sorrow in their hearts. Did it all come down to this? They knew very well what would ensue following Futian's resistance and his declaration of war with the Imperial Palace. This would push the situation to the point of no return. Those principalities from the Divine Prefecture held grudges against Futian. They smirked silently. This was no more than Futian seeking his own death. If there were ever a chance for him to get out of this mess, he had completely squandered it by now. He was courting death. Above the firmament, the Spear Emperor, Du Yu, and other cultivators from the Imperial Palace focused their attention on Futian, who was below. Divine lights shone brightly upon them and yielded terribly sharp auras. The aura that hovered above the long spear in Du Yu's hands was even more appalling. He looked at Futian with a slight pity in his eyes. Did this worm actually think that he could shake the tree? Did Futian really want to go to war with the Imperial Palace? He took a step forward, and the long spear in his hand pierced straight down. Instantaneously, a long spear pierced through heaven and earth, descending from the void all the way down, slaughtering towards Futian. It was as if this strike would traverse the void and take Futian down. Buzz. However, at this moment, the boundless starlight above the void sprinkled down, and those lights fell directly in front of Futian, where they turned into a starry light screen. The Spear Emperor's long spear arrived and blasted right on the light screen, which blocked the attack. The light screen was so brilliant that it shut out all the attacks, ones that came from a Pikren Huang. Futian continued to stand there quietly and didn't move a muscle. It was as if he had absolute confidence in himself. An exceedingly horrific aura came down from the sky, causing the Spear Emperor to look slightly concerned. The starlight had illuminated the entire Ziwei segmentum. He looked up at the firmament and saw that there was a heavenly might that was descending. The countless stars seemed to have transformed into a massive and boundless face, the face of a deity. Ziwei the Great. This is the Starry Cultivation Court. All the cultivators from Divine Prefecture looked up into the sky as if the world had now coincided with the world of the Starry Cultivation Court. They looked quite surprised. Could it be that the entire Ziwei segmentum was now shrouded by the will of the great emperor? The starry sky world was the Ziwei segmentum. Yi Futian had inherited the will of Ziwei the Great and gained control over the starry sky world. He was able to awaken the will of Ziwei the Great, causing the change to occur in heaven and on earth as the heavenly bodies shifted. In Ziwei segmentum, Yi Futian was its true master. Buzz. At this moment, a star above the sky lit up with horrific starlight. It was aimed directly at the spear emperor. Du Yu's face altered a bit when he saw the extremely bright star release terrible starlight, heading right at him. It was an imperial star. He raised the long spear in his hand and stepped into the void. As the long spear pierced forward, it spat out infinite divine light to counter the light that had descended from the starry sky. When the two beams of light collided, the spear will was obliterated. That terrifying aura eradicated everything in its path as it continued down. The spear emperor was repelled by it. His body was knocked straight into the air. Boom! His body fell hard on the ground, creating an opening in the ground. Du Yu's body was nowhere to be found because it had been blasted deep into the ground. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2398, Feng Ru. Chapter 2398, Feng Ru. What was happening shocked everyone watching. Yi Futian had leveraged the power of the starry sky to fight, and all the stars in the heavens seemed to be under his direct command. The will of the great emperor was his will. Yi Futian had inherited the will of Ziwei the Great in the starry cultivation court back then and had completely integrated with the will of the great emperor. The spear emperor, Du Yu, and the divine general of divine prefecture imperial palace were blasted beneath the ground by the starlight summoned by Yi Futian, who didn't even move. Under this segmentum, it seemed that he was the master of this universe, and no one could usurp his authority. This is crazy, many thought. In the distance, people from the top principalities in the divine prefecture were watching in awe. In one direction, where the cultivators from Donghua Domain Chief's manor had congregated, Ning Yuan's eyes swept through the space and zoomed in on Yi Futian. For him to have declared war on the imperial palace, Yi Futian had now burned many bridges and dug his own grave. So what if he was in charge of this segmentum? The entity in front of him was no longer just the top power of the divine prefecture but the principality that dominated and ruled all of the divine prefecture. The will of Ziwei the Great might be strong, but he was a fallen great emperor after all. Now, only Donghuang the Great was the ruler of all of the divine prefecture. Those divine generals in the void were brilliant with divine lights shining on their bodies, and a terrifying aura descended. Those sharp gazes were directed at Yi Futian, but they made no move against him. Du Yu had been suppressed by a single blow, and they didn't think they would fare any better than him. The same fate would probably befall them as well. In this world, perhaps only the cultivators at the very top had the ability to deal with Yi Futian. The people from the Heavenly Mandate Academy didn't feel elated when they saw the sight before them. On the contrary, they felt a sense of profound sorrow. Gu Donglu had been cultivating and improving his cultivation in the starry cultivation court in the days past, but he was still powerless when faced with today's situation. Once upon a time, their teacher Mr. Du had been taken away in this manner. Now, facing these principalities of the divine prefecture, his junior brother had the power to battle them, and he was bold enough to resist. This was nothing less than open defiance against the authority of the gods. If their teacher had known that their little junior brother had progressed to this stage, he would probably be incredibly pleased. The imperial palace, on the other hand, would probably put an end to this. And when he thought about that, he couldn't help but felt a deep sadness. Once, he had thought that they would have victory over all of their opponents, no matter who they were, as long as they were given the luxury of time. But what about the likes of Donghuang the Great? There was only desperation now. No matter how long they were given, they could only revere that which was the legend of the world. Your Royal Highness, I don't want to fight, but it seems that I don't have a choice. Yi Futian levitated above the temple and said to Princess Donghuang, Whatever happens today, no matter the outcome, I am responsible for my actions. I hope that it will not affect anybody else. Very well. Princess Donghuang looked at Yi Futian's and agreed to his request. Thank you very much. Yi Futian nodded slightly. Hearing what Yi Futian had to say, the cultivators from Ziwei Imperial Palace and the Heavenly Mandate Academy sighed. If something were to happen to Yi Futian, could Ziwei Imperial Palace and the Heavenly Mandate Academy be able to survive in this troubled world? Today's world was in utter chaos. With all these worlds upon them, there was no telling how many of them had set their eyes on the starry cultivation court in Ziwei Imperial Palace. Once Yi Futian was no more, the alliance between the Heavenly Mandate Academy, Ziwei Segmentum, and the Lost Clan would very likely disintegrate as well. Then, it would spell nothing but pure disaster for all of them. These several great forces could connect and remain stable in these troubled times because Yi Futian had played a decisive role. Take him, Princess Donghuang spat with immeasurable coldness. Immediately behind her, several extremely powerful beings stepped forward. The auras upon them were quite astonishing. With all the worlds coming, the forces representing the Divine Prefecture were also much more substantial this time. After all, the original realm was part of the Divine Prefecture. Yi Futian perceived those horrific auras and wondered how many powerful characters like these were there inside the Imperial Palace of the Divine Prefecture. A ray of light illuminated Yi Futian, and in the next moment his figure disappeared from right where he was standing. Many looked up in the sky and saw Yi Futian's figure appeared above the firmament. He seemed to have integrated into the starry sky world as an unparalleled figure appeared behind him. It was the phantom of Ziwei the Great. The authority of heaven descended, and the horror in the atmosphere reached the peak as the coercion now overwhelmed the entire Ziwei Segmentum. At this moment, in the Ziwei Segmentum, as well as the many starry worlds, countless creatures raised their heads to look into the firmament. They had felt that heavenly might, and with a tremendous shock. They were wondering what was happening. Your Royal Highness, let me reiterate that I have no intention of fighting with the Imperial Palace. However, if the princess refuses to let the matter go, I would fight using the starry sky. Your Royal Highness should know that the previous princess of Ziwei Imperial Palace perished under the starry sky. Above the firmament, a voice was heard, full of a supreme godly might. Once, the previous palace lord of Ziwei Imperial Palace had intended on seizing the will of the great emperor and had been killed on the spot by Yi Futian, using the will of the great emperor. Afterward, Yi Futian inherited the position as the palace lord of the Imperial Palace. This event was witnessed by many cultivators in the Divine Prefecture. The Imperial Palace should have heard something about that as well. If Yi Futian could fight by leveraging the will of Ziwei the Great, the strength he exerted would be the same as it was then. Perhaps, under the prowess of a great emperor, no one would be able to compete with him. No wonder Yi Futian was so confident that he asked Yu Xing and the others to stand down. Under this starry sky, unless it was Donghuang the Great himself who was here, Yi Futian had no fear of anyone. Under the starry sky, the cultivators from the Imperial Palace were a little hesitant. They did not expect that in the land of the original realm, they would be hindered by a Renhuang of the seventh realm. At this time, a man who had been standing there quietly now walked out from behind Princess Donghuang. He was wearing a cape with a hood on his head, and now he took off the hood as he raised his head slightly to look up into the space high above. It was a middle-aged man who looked to be no more than 40. He had an elegant and scholarly temperament. There did not seem to be any aggression from him. Instead, he appeared aloof and detached. Previously, he stood quietly behind the princess just like everybody else from the Divine Prefecture, inconspicuous and easily looked over. But the moment he walked out and stood under the starry sky, everyone could feel the exceptional temperament about him. He stood there as if he was the master of this world. Who is he? Many Renhuang from Divine Prefecture did not recognize this man, but some top figures in the other worlds had made out who this elegant and erudite person was. They were amazed that he was the one who had been protecting Princess Donghuang. Behind Yu Sheng, old demon Tunshin saw the middle-aged man and whispered, Feng Ru. This was a contemporaneous existence of his, in an era when even Donghuang the Great was an unknown. Who is he? Yusheng asked old Demon Tunshan, clearly feeling the importance of the man from the expression in old Demon Tunshan's eyes. Thousands of years would have taken his cultivation to the peak just below the great emperor. He is an existence known to have the most probability of impacting the imperial realm. Now that many years had passed, he is probably infinitely closer to that realm except for the shackle of the heavenly path, old Demon Tunshan explained. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2399. Peak Beneath the Emperor. Chapter 2399. Peak beneath the Emperor Yi Futian surveyed the area below and saw Feng Ru drift upwards. In the sky high above he stood there quietly, surrounded by divine light. A brilliant image radiated outward from his location. It was a splendid vista, a scaled-down version of a much larger world. Vision of the world. Everyone raised their heads to look around Feng Ru. The vision that appeared was an entity all on its own. The power of the surrounding heaven and earth poured into it with insanity. It was as if the vision of the world was a world of a higher degree that could borrow the power of the great path from the outside world and integrate it into this tiny world to be used. Feng Ru stood there quietly, unbelievably tranquil. Just by standing there casually, it was clear that all the power from the heavens was under his control, as if he was the master of this universe. It seems that Feng Ru has already been exploring that kind of realm. His splendid vista is now become more developed, forming a world of its own. The rules inside of it have already surpassed the rules of the great path on the outside world. Some top cultivators marveled silently as they witnessed the sight. Feng Ru was a powerful existence who had achieved his fame millenniums ago. For countless years, he must have been pursuing and exploring that supreme realm, seeking a breakthrough hindered only by the shackles of heavenly path. Presumably, the two had struck a deal for him to follow Donghuang the Great willingly. Perhaps, Donghuang the Great had agreed to give him some guidance here and there. Otherwise, as a supreme existence, Feng Ru did not need to condescend to protect the daughter of Donghuang the Great. Except for pursuing the most supreme realm of them all, someone like Feng Ru did not need to ask for anything else, much less obey someone else and act the role of a glorified guard. Unless it was the temptation of breaking through that realm that caused his change of heart. Would you like to create your own rules of the world? How difficult is it to break the shackles of the heavenly path? How can a person even begin to embark on that legendary road? Many people had the same questions, especially those who had already survived the divine tribulation of the great path. They were full of curiosity and anticipation. For those at that realm, there weren't many things that could interest them enough to become an actual passion. They could clearly feel that Feng Ru might have taken a small step forward already. He stood there, and the world around him seemed to be at his disposal. Above the firmament, Yi Futian perceived Feng Ru's mighty strength. This may be the strongest existence he had seen so far, other than the teacher, whose true strength was still a mystery. However, Feng Ru, as he stood in front of him, gave him a sensation that was entirely different from the others. It was tremendously powerful. But at this time, he was no longer himself in the common sense of the word. In the Ziwei segmentum, he was its de facto master. He, whose will could be matched with the will of Ziwei the Great, had all the stars in the heavens at his command. Or one could say that within this starry sky, he was someone akin to a god. At this moment, he saw that Feng Ru had made a move below, and he was coming towards the starry sky. Suddenly this vast world seemed to be shaken because of him. Yi Futian glanced at the area below, and his thoughts shifted. Suddenly, a supreme coercion came from the sky, surrounded by the stars. When Feng Ru was on his way up, all these stars emitted the most brilliant starlight. It came down upon Feng Ru at the same time. It was a stunning sight when countless starlight began to fall at the same time, every starlight containing the might of the way. Buzz. The starlight illuminated the area where Feng Ru was, but it was blocked from the outside. The imagery of the vista around Feng Ru was like a true scaled-down world. When the starlight fell, it failed to penetrate that world, unable to break through its defense. What was even more frightening was that all the power of the heavens seemed to be guarding surround Feng Ru, resonating with the world he created. His speed was so fast that it approached the limits of what was possible. It was hard to detect with the naked eye as he rushed directly above the firmament. The cultivators below could no longer see any trace of Feng Ru. There was only a ray of light, which seemed to have already entered into that brilliant starry sky world and headed towards the heaven full of stars. Because Yi Futian was leveraging the will of Ziwei the Great, he was able to merge with a heaven full of stars. Feng Ru had now actually gone over to attack, attempting to capture Yi Futian. Above the firmament, everyone saw that the light became even more radiant. Only those top cultivators could perceive the situation taking place in the starry sky. The stars in the heavens seemed to be moving like real stars, gigantic and massive. These humongous stars turned into meteors and slammed down at Feng Ru. The power that was generated from the stars that turned into meteors was plenty frightening. At the same time, many meteors fell, slamming into Feng Ru and his miniature world. Rumble. The sky seemed to be shaking fiercely. Feng Ru raised his head and looked up. Instantly, all the power of the heavens seemed to vibrate and resonate with him. He raised his palm, and the heavens trembled. Infinite power of the great path gathered around as if affected by his every move. The gestures of his hands seemed to influence the entire world. What a terrifying existence! Even Peikren Huang and those who had survived the divine tribulation of the great path felt this tremendous shakeup. How strong was someone who had achieved his fame millenniums ago? As if just by a simple gesture of raising a finger pointing the void, and instantly, the sky was thoroughly shaken up. Those falling meteors that came blasting down were attacked at the same moment. Streams of light rushed above the stars. It seemed that the sky was collapsing. The people below were shocked to see that the stars were exploding and being destroyed. It seemed as if they had been attacked by an inconceivable force, and all of them collapsed at the same moment. Any star attacking Feng Ru's direction was ultimately crushed in this madness. Incredible! The hearts of many trembled. Was this kind of power possible for mere mortals? None of them had expected that such incredulously terrifying power could be possible at the very peak of cultivation. If so, what kind of unimaginable power did the great emperor possess? Even Yi Futian was awed by Feng Ru's might. When he saw that so many stars had shattered and exploded, he clearly perceived that all the stars were attacked simultaneously. Under Feng Ru's finger, the power of the great path in all the heavens resonated with him. They blasted upon all the stars despite the spatial distance. He seemed to be able to take over the control of the great path power inside this world. Yi Futian had never come into contact personally with this kind of incredible power. Although he had slayed existences who survived the second divine tribulation of the great path, he did not do so, relying purely on his own strength. Leveraging the power of Ziwei the Great was not equivalent to using the power that belonged to himself. He hadn't yet reached that level, so it was difficult for him to really understand what that realm would feel like. Feng Ru's mighty strength made Yi Futian realize that it would be impossible to stop Feng Ru without the power of Ziwei the Great. Most likely, this man was standing at a level closest to and just beneath that of the great emperor. As his mind turned, it was as if he had entered into a state of selflessness. At this moment, the stars in all the heavens were shining at the same time the heavenly might descended. The phantom of Ziwei the Great became clearer. It was as if the great emperor had begun to awaken. Accompanied by the incoming heavenly might, even Feng Ru felt the pressure now as he raised his head to take on that gigantic phantom of the great emperor. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2400, Qiankuan Finger. Chapter 2400, Qiankuan Finger. Yi Futian's figure appeared there as well. He stood below the shadows of the great emperor, looking like the descendant of a god. As he closed his eyes, divine light flared from his body. At this moment, the stars of the celestial skies all started shining simultaneously. Yi Futian's projection appeared on every single one of them. It was as if he existed everywhere at the same time. If I attack, then there's no going back. Senior, are you sure you want this battle? A voice echoed the void, resonating with the skies. Yi Futian's might exerted great pressure on all of the Ziwei segmentum. He could sense Feng Ru's power and knew that normal attacks would likely not affect him. The only way was to use the might of the heavens in his attack. Divine light swirled around Feng Ru. He raised his head, looked at the celestial skies and said, "Do it." Great emperors were akin to gods. They could not be provoked. Even someone as strong as Feng Ru would be powerless before a great emperor. However, he was only facing the will of Ziwei the Great and not the great emperor himself. Regardless, he still wanted a sense of how powerful the might of a great emperor would be. At this instant, the splendid vista world behind him expanded dramatically. It seemed as if it was turning into an actual world. Below the starry skies, a small world appeared. When this small world manifested, it started reeling in and swallowing the powers of the great paths of the world. In the vast, boundless space, it was as if everything was resonating with the small world. Just then, endless divine lights started streaming down from the celestial skies, converging below Yi Futian. There, a supreme sword will started to form, giving rise to a divine sword that contained the might of the skies. This divine sword seemed to be capable of slashing the skies open, merging all of the celestial stars into one to form a divine sword, someone said. The cultivators all looked up in shock. The previous lord of the imperial palace met his demise under an attack similar to this. While Feng Ru's power was nearly immeasurable, could he really endure such an attack? No one would know. After all, one could see how powerful Feng Ru was based on his attack just now, but there was no way of knowing his full power at this point. Terrifying sounds could be heard ripping through the skies. The supersonic blasts caused the air to tremble. Below, countless people from the Ziwei segmentum looked up towards the celestial skies. They saw the might of the skies forcing downwards together with the projection of Ziwei the Great. The divine sword was before the great emperor, slashing out as if it was wielded by the gods. The great paths were collapsing, crushed, and were ultimately torn into fragments. Deep, terrifying cracks appeared. It looked like an omen before the entire world falling apart. Yet even then, the divine sword was entirely unaffected. All of the gashes that appeared in the great path couldn't stop the ray of light from the sword. It continued to travel down the turbulence of cracks and gashes. It was unstoppable. Even escape by using the power of the great path of space wouldn't be possible, as space itself was collapsing as well. An attack on this level had already exceeded the physical limits of the void realm. Atop the skies, it was as if a crack had appeared, slashed open by the divine sword. Being able to receive an attack of the will of Ziwei the Great is an honor, Feng Ru said as he looked up. However, even though he was a supreme being in the past, he had already passed and shouldn't continue to exist in this world. The greatest of this time should belong to this era. His voice was humble yet arrogant, overflowing with an endless might of domination. When he raised his arm, it was as though all the powers of the world started flowing towards him and converging onto his arm. At this moment, Feng Ru's body flared magnificently. He looked like a divine frame, unparalleled in the mortal world. As he amassed unmatched power on his arms, countless divine lights started flowing towards his fingers. The divine lights flickering and erupting from his fingertips were more potent than the sharpest blades the world had ever seen. Qianquan finger. In the distance, old demon Tuntian, who was standing beside Yu Xing, said, Feng Ru created the legendary technique, Qianquan finger, on his own. It's extremely powerful. Going up against the starry divine sword of Ziwei the Great with a single finger, a demonic cultivator beside him said softly, unable to conceive what he had just heard. Although Feng Ru had made a name for himself thousands of years ago, it did not justify how he could be so confident. Old Demon Tuntian's voice sank as he said, "Didn't you sense the power contained in that single finger?" The stars in the sky were crushed. This finger contained the power of the universe, and he had condensed his full power into it. While the attacks before this were all spread out, the true ultimate Qianqan finger would look like this, concentrated at a single point. Once it erupts, its power would be able to fill up and destroy my black hole whirlpool, which is said to be able to engulf the skies. He rated Feng Ru extremely highly. Even in his generation, there were only a handful of cultivators who had reached this level. Yu Sheng and the other demonic cultivators were shocked by the comment. They all knew how terrifying old demon Tunshan's power of devouring was. It could literally devour everything, including celestial stars. Yet he just said that this one puny finger, upon eruption, would be able to fill his black hole whirlpool capable of devouring all matter. Every cultivator in this world has their own methods of cultivation. The cultivators of the Infinite Palace are skilled with the infinite, endless, and boundless. But some people are skilled with the concentration of power instead. Imagine two attacks with the same weight. Do you think it would have more explosive force when it has the magnitude of a mountain or that of a rock? Old Demon Tunshan continued as he watched the two attacks in the skies nearing each other. On top of that, the Qianquan finger isn't as simple as condensing and releasing the power of the skies. It was said that the Qianquan finger contained a small world, compressing the power of a whole world into a micro-world, operating based on some mysterious law. It seemed to be compressing an endlessly large supreme mythical matrix into one finger. When it erupts, its power will be unmatched. As he spoke, the might of the celestial skies continued to force downward. Even they could feel the power despite it being so high up. The projection of Ziwei the Great descended with the divine sword as Feng Ru was pointing to the sky with one finger. It was as though the two attacks weren't even on the same order of magnitude. At this moment, Feng Ru looked so small and vulnerable. It was as though he would be crushed by any attack at all. But at the instant when the two attacks really came into contact, the cultivator's visions were filled with a blinding light of obliteration which had erupted and deluged the skies, blocking out everything. The celestial stars were crushed and exploded in a massive chain reaction. Even the divine sword, the power of which was nearly unimaginable just moments ago, was disintegrating bit by bit. As the blast continued upwards, stars from even further out in the galaxy were obliterated as well. Many people couldn't see what was happening as the blinding light flared in the skies. Yet, when the light finally faded away, they saw that the divine sword had disappeared. Atop the skies, the projection of Ziwei the Great was still there, and so was Yi Futian. However, his aura was precarious and he was shaken to the core. Below him, Feng Ru was blasted down from the skies, and his aura was equally unstable. His posture was also not as straight as before. The might of Ziwei the Great. It is indeed as powerful as legend says. But it was only the will of a great emperor after all, not an actual great emperor, Feng Ru said to Yi Futian, who stood in the skies. And this wasn't your own power either, so you can't show me the true divine power. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2401. Pleas from Various Forces? Chapter 2401. Pleas from Various Forces? Yi Futian looked below. Naturally, he knew that Feng Ru was right that the will of Ziwei the Great was hidden amongst the celestial stars. He could indeed borrow them in battle, but his plane was a little low after all. He was only 7th level Renhuang plane, so his powers were limited even after borrowing from the celestial stars, let alone in comparison with the actual Great Emperor. In fact, he didn't even manage to release 30% of the celestial powers. Otherwise, even if Feng Ru were only one step away from becoming Great Emperor, he would still be obliterated. So what if he was as powerful as one could be short of being a Great Emperor? The will of the Great Emperor was carved into the celestial stars. The explosive power of its attack was equivalent to a portion of the power of the Great Emperor. It was just that Yi Futian couldn't unleash it fully. Of course, even then one could see how strong Feng Ru was. Even with such a powerful attack, all it did was make his finger bleed. It didn't actually waver him or injure his body of Wei. At this point, Feng Ru's aura was still terrifying, and the small world continued to circle him. The lights of the great paths of the skies streamed into the small world and resonated with it, contending with the divine might of the celestial stars. Princess Donghuang looked toward the figure high up in the sky and said, "I gave you a chance before. Now, I'm giving you another chance. Follow me back to the imperial palace. If you are not directly related to him, we'll close one eye and stop chasing after you. But if you continue to be stubborn," as she paused, her eyes turned cold, and her aura became dangerously sharp. She then continued, "You will die here." As she finished speaking, several figures walked out from behind her. Their mighty aura subdued that of even the celestial skies. Every one of them was an apex cultivator, and their terrifying auras could be sensed from miles away. Feng Ru levitated again. Divine lights surrounded him as his might fired up into the skies. The hearts of the divine prefecture cultivators trembled. That was the princess of the divine prefecture and the only daughter of Donghuang the Great. So what if Yi Futian was an unmatched genius? He was lucky that the princess was willing to give him a chance to follow her back to the imperial palace to clear up the issue. If Yi Futian didn't comply, that would mean that he had lied to her. If that were the case, she could kill her then and there. Leaving him alive would serve no purpose. He could even betray them and join the other worlds in the future. Princess Donghuang's words made many of the divine prefecture forces that had a grudge with Yi Futian laugh inside. Yi Futian was way too confident. He even dared to start a war with the imperial palace. If that wasn't a death wish, then what was? No place in the divine prefecture could accommodate him at this point. Even his attempt this time to escape into the crevices of space to hide away from the divine prefecture was futile. The cultivators here could travel across worlds to chase after him, so there's no way he could escape. And if he left this celestial region, he would die even faster. Without borrowing power from the celestial skies, cultivators on the level of Feng Ru could easily deal with him. He could take Yi Futian's life with a snap of his finger. They were of a fundamentally different level. The expression of the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the Ziwei Segmentum all changed. They all felt a sense of despair when Princess Donghuang gave the kill order. Was there really no hope for Yi Futian? How did things become like this? At this point, it was as if every way was leading to a dead end. The cultivators from the other worlds all sneered inside. Yi Futian came out of nowhere and made a name for himself with his unparalleled talents. They even thought that a phenom of the era was about to rise from the land of the divine prefecture, which would become a threat to them. It was especially so for the Dark World, who had battled Yi Futian several times before. A powerful aura started to engulf the skies above Yi Futian as waves of dark divine lights started spreading towards there. The divine prefecture imperial palace cultivators frowned, then they saw the cultivators of the Dark World arriving. They turned out to be from the Dark Court. The leading figure's aura was especially terrifying. It was an apex-level cultivator as well. He was dressed in all black, and a terrifying aura of obliteration surrounded him. Princess Donghuang looked toward them. What were the people of the Dark Court doing here? Donghuang the Great was the prodigy of an era and met no opponent in his time. He spurred the great prosperity of the divine prefecture. Such an incredible being. I'm sure he wouldn't actually want to pick on the younger generation. Even if Yi Futian was related to Emperor Yi Qing, Emperor Yi Qing had already passed on. I'm sure that Donghuang the Great would remember their friendship and let some things go instead of taking out his grudge on a young boy, the cultivator from the Dark Court said. This caused those from the divine prefecture to show a strange expression. The Dark Court wanted to protect Yi Futian? They quickly realized what was happening. The Dark Court had some conflict with Yi Futian. If that had happened before this, naturally, they would want Yi Futian dead instead of him becoming their enemy. But now, knowing that Yi Futian could be related to Emperor Yi Qing and that the divine prefecture imperial palace even took action to kill him, the Dark Court instead wanted Yi Futian to stay alive. But as a result, wouldn't that enlarge the conflict between Yi Futian and the divine prefecture? Naturally, that was the situation they wanted to see happen. I thought so too, of course. Donghuang the Great wouldn't take things out on a youngster. A cultivator from the empty divine realm stepped forward as well. Under the celestial skies, what was happening now seemed rather odd. Back then, Yi Futian stood on the side of the divine prefecture in a war with the dark world and the empty divine realm, and they had even won the war for them. What was this supposed to be now? The divine prefecture imperial palace wanted to kill Yi Futian, and the dark world and the empty divine realm came to protect him instead. That was certainly interesting. The cultivators of the two worlds didn't stand out just now. They must have been waiting for the relationship between Yi Futian and the divine prefecture to deteriorate completely. Only when Princess Donghuang gave the order to eliminate Yi Futian did they actually step out. You have no right to meddle in the divine prefecture's business, Princess Donghuang said coldly as her gaze swept across the cultivators from the two groups. The original realm doesn't belong to any single organization today. We've mentioned this before. Perhaps it is time to revise the division of the original realm. Yi Futian is a cultivator of the original realm, and we think he won't belong to the divine prefecture or be a subordinate of the princess. So what right does that give princess to decide his fate? The cultivator from the dark court continued. Just then, Yu Sheng led his group to step forward as well. As such, the devil world seemed to be protecting Yi Futian too. This made Fang Ru frown as there were actually 3 worlds intervening now. They all wanted to stop them from killing Yi Futian. Just then, another group of cultivators arrived from the skies, but they walked toward Princess Donghuang. The auras of these cultivators exuded justice and righteousness, and each of them had an outstanding temperament. They were cultivators from the human realm. One of the cultivators came before Princess Donghuang and said softly, "Princess, past matters have already been settled, and now they are all just the past. Surely an unparalleled figure like Donghuang the Great wouldn't fuss over things of the past. Why should the princess care about a mere Renhuang plain cultivator? I'm afraid that could even affect the great emperor's reputation. How about we just leave him be?" Unexpectedly, the human realm was standing up for Yi Futian as well. However, they seemed to be coming from a slightly different standpoint. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2402, Dialogue with the Great Emperor. Chapter 2402, Dialogue with the Great Emperor. Except for the divine prefecture, the cultivators across various worlds were pleading on Yi Futian's behalf. What was happening now seemed a little strange. Even Yi Futian himself looked puzzled above the sky. The dark world and the empty divine realm were both principalities that had grievances against him, while he had never had many interactions with the human realm. On the contrary, the human realm was closer to the imperial palace in the divine prefecture. But now, they were advocating on his behalf. No doubt, the dark world and the empty divine realm each have their own schemes, while the human realm seemed to be more concerned with the reputation of Donghuang the Great. As for the specific thoughts behind the action of each principality, it was something that only they know. Now, the problem was left in the hands of Princess Donghuang. She saw the situation unfolding in front of her. Those radiant, beautiful eyes of hers looked at Yi Futian above the sky as she said coldly, "Yi Futian violated the order of the imperial palace, and this is impertinent enough to declare war. It is an unforgivable offense." Princess Donghuang pressed too hard. Isn't it normal that others would resist under such circumstances? The top figures from the dark court said casually, seemingly taking Yi Futian's side. Judging from their posture, it seemed as if they were ready to intervene by force in order to prevent the people from the divine prefecture from taking action. Fang Ru levitated into the air, and the cultivators from the dark court and the empty divine realm were also standing in the vicinity, ready to battle at a moment's notice. "If you insist on interfering in the matters of the divine prefecture, I will have no choice but to ask my father to adjudicate," Princess Donghuang said indifferently. Everyone who heard her narrowed their eyes slightly. Asking Donghuang the Great to adjudicate? Divine light dazzled upon Princess Donghuang, and a terrifying divine might was released from her. In an instant, the divine light seemed to spill down from the sky, penetrating through the starry sky world as if from the outer world. As this divine light enveloped this boundless space, an inordinately strong emperor's might effused from Princess Donghuang. Yonder, an elusive figure appeared. Clearly, it was not Dong Huang the Great, but a projection of the great emperor onto the world. At this moment, cultivators from all sides, no matter who they were, lowered their heads and said, "Greetings to Dong Huang the Great." "Greetings, great emperor," others said. Even most of the cultivators from the Dark Court, the empty divine realm, and the devil world saluted the great emperor to show their respect. Although they were on the opposing side, the great emperor was a supreme existence, and they were not opponents of Dong Huang the Great in any way. In the presence of such supreme existence, even if they were hostiles, they still had to observe the necessary formalities. The phantom did not speak but looked at Yi Futian, who was above the starry sky. Yi Futian's heart trembled when he saw that figure. Once, he had seen the afterimage of Dong Huang the Great on Sky Mountain. This time, it seemed that he was closer. He didn't expect that the great emperor would visit the original realm in person because of him. Feng Ru stepped aside and bowed, leaving it to Dong Huang the Great to decide. Dong Huang the Great kept his eyes on Yi Futian, which made Yi Futian feel an inexplicable coercion. Those eyes were so profound that he could not fathom any emotions within them. "It's pretty impressive for you to obtain the inheritance of Ziwei the Great until this day," Dong Huang the Great said. "This is a feat worthy of being his successor." The words of Dong Huang the Great shocked all the cultivators who heard him. The great emperor had spoken and personally stated Yi Futian's identity. He was indeed the heir of Emperor Yi Qing. No wonder Yi Futian didn't quite understand everything. Maybe he could be considered half an heir of Emperor Yi Qing, but he was far from being his successor. They had met just that one time, but Emperor Yi Qing knew of his true identity. But could Dong Huang the Great really be in the dark about who he really was, even confusing him with the successor of Emperor Yi Qing? Great Emperor, so many years have passed since the events of yesteryear. Perhaps the great emperor already left those things behind. The top cultivator from the human realm spoke with lowered head. Dong Huang the Great glanced at the speaker but did not say a word. He continued to stare at Yi Futian. At this moment, another astonishing aura descended from above, which alarmed everyone present. Another super-powerful aura. Who could it be? Dong Huang. A voice was heard from the sky, and the crowd looked in the direction where the voice came from. A space-time passage seemed to have opened above the firmament. An image appeared at the end of the passage. It appeared to be a simple courtyard with a figure sitting quietly in the middle of it. The figure was looking in their direction. An endless distance separated them. Many people were shocked beyond words. How far away was this person? "Teacher, it's been a long time." Dong Huang the Great looked at the figure in the courtyard and talked to him from across the air. That figure, surprisingly, was the teacher of Four Corner Village. "Indeed, it has been many years," the teacher said. "I still remember when you first came to the village once upon a time. Many years later, Yi Futian came as well, and I felt some similarities between the two of you. Specifically, that you are one of a kind. I didn't know the teacher holds him in such high regard." Dong Huang the Great said, "No wonder he was selected. This young lad is really not bad. Perhaps, in the future, he might have the opportunity to chase in your footsteps," the teacher continued. But Dong Huang the Great smiled when he heard these words and said, "Since the teacher sees it this way, I am also curious now to see how far this lad can go in the future. Well, if so, I won't say more. If you have the time, come and visit the village sometimes," said the teacher. "Definitely," Dong Huang the Great nodded. Then the divine light retracted as the passageway disappeared along with the teacher's figure, which had now disappeared from the imagery. Everything returned to normal. It was as if everything that had just happened was an illusion, that nothing had really transpired. But it was all so real. Was the dialogue between two great emperors real? From beginning to end, the teacher had never begged Dong Huang the Great to spare Yi Futian. It was more like a casual chat between two old friends. However, these few random words seemed to have determined Yi Futian's fate. They could see that Dong Huang the Great had agreed to let Yi Futian go. The teacher said that perhaps Yi Futian could walk in his footsteps. And Dong Huang the Great said that was something he would like to see. As the world knew, Dong Huang the Great was an unparalleled character. Emperor Yi Qing had already perished. Would Dong Huang the Great care about a young lad? The great emperor who had suppressed an entire era was such a mighty existence. Would he be afraid of a young lad who might threaten him? Of course not. He was Dong Huang the Great. You can handle the matters here yourself. Dong Huang the Great left with one last command, then looked at Yi Futian one last time. His figure gradually dissipated. Afterward, it was as if he had never appeared in the first place. The last sentence was clearly addressing Princess Dong Huang, telling her to conclude the matter at hand. Clearly, he did not intend to take action against Yi Futian himself. Phew! At this moment, the Heavenly Mandate Academy and other cultivators let out a deep breath. Was this over now? At the end of the day, they never expected that cultivators from all the worlds would stand up to protect Yi Futian, or that the teacher from Four Corner Village would have opened up a channel to start a dialogue with Dong Huang the Great so that Yi Futian's life could be spared. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2403, Life After Catastrophe. Chapter 2403, Life After Catastrophe. Dong Huang the Great had decided not to take action against Yi Futian, which meant that the imperial palace of the Divine Prefecture would no longer pose a threat to Yi Futian. Everyone had thought that Yi Futian was a dead man for sure, but they never expected such a dramatic turn of events. What would Princess Dong Huang do next? Yi Futian was considered very powerful in the original realm. Although he was far from capable of contending alone with the many forces in the Divine Prefecture, in one-on-one situations, there was no single force below the level of Ancient God Clan that Yi Futian couldn't overcome. Counting in the strength from the Lost Clan, then even the Ancient God Clan was no competition. No one was off-limit, given the power controlled by Yi Futian. Even the Ancient God Clan might even be suppressed. Yi Futian had been confirmed as the successor of Emperor Yi Qing, thus making him an enemy of the Imperial Palace in Divine Prefecture by default. Would Princess Dong Huang allow him to continue developing his own power freely? But Dong Huang the Great had already said that he wanted to see where Yi Futian could go in the future. Clearly, he didn't care. How could a great emperor, unparalleled in the world, possibly be afraid of a young lad? In the many years that had passed, how many great emperors, such as Dong Huang the Great, had come to pass in this world? Everyone's attention was fixed on Princess Dong Huang. She was looking at Yi Futian above the firmament right now and proclaimed, "From this day forward, principalities belonging to Yi Futian will no longer be ruled by the Divine Prefecture. Ziwei Segmentum may make a choice, same as the various forces currently under the rule of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. As for the Lost Clan, which had already agreed to submit under the jurisdiction of the Imperial Palace, it may no longer be involved with Yi Futian henceforth." Once, when all the forces laid siege upon the Lost Clan, she came forward and saved them. The agreement was for the Lost Clan to accept the Imperial Palace in Divine Prefecture and submit to its rule. Given this condition, they could no longer ally with Yi Futian. If the alliance with Yi Futian were to continue, they would lose protection from the Imperial Palace. As for the Ziwei Segmentum, it was left by Ziwei the Gria and was never intended as a principality that belonged to the Divine Prefecture. Likewise, the Heavenly Mandate Academy consisted mostly of relationships developed by Yi Futian. Therefore, Princess Dong Huang allowed them to make their own choices. However, among the two forces outside of the Lost Clan, the will of Ziwei the Great had long resonated with Yi Futian, and because of that, the Ziwei Segmentum would probably never escape his control. The Heavenly Mandate Academy was one with Yi Futian for so long that it was simply impossible for it ever to betray him. We have been entrusted by Ziwei the Great to do his bidding. The Palace Lord, once obtained the inheritance of Ziwei the Great, became the Palace Lord of the Ziwei Imperial Palace and took charge of the Ziwei Segmentum. This is the will of Ziwei the Great, and those who cultivate in the Ziwei Segmentum must heed it. We hope the princess will understand, Ren Huangchen explained. The Heavenly Mandate Academy was built by Yi Futian single-handedly. Without Yi Futian, the Heavenly Mandate Academy would not have been possible. I hope the princess will forgive us. Lord Taishan of the Heavenly Mandate Academy also spoke up. There was no doubt that they were willing to stand by Yi Futian. We were never part of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, we ended up there only after being threatened by Yi Futian to submit. Now, we are willing to serve the princess, said a dissenting voice. It was none other than the college chief of the former Tianshan Academy, Jian Ao. That's right, we were forced by Yi Futian to be part of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, and now we are willing to serve the princess, said another voice. All those remnant forces from the 9 realms that had surrendered to the Heavenly Mandate Academy now seized their chance to rebel. The current situation was turbulent, to say the least. Following Princess Donghuang and serving the imperial palace directly was the way to survive in these troubled times. Yi Futian had now offended the imperial palace in the divine prefecture beyond repair. His own safety was in jeopardy, and he would have to watch his back at all times. They were no fools, so they knew how to choose. Shameless beasts, Sky River Great Elder rebuked coldly. Instead of killing them back then, their lives had been spared, and they were given a chance to surrender. They never expected them to change their tunes so quickly and decisively now. But Yi Futian, who was still above the sky, didn't feel quite that way. Betrayal was commonplace for these people, and he didn't really care. Emperor Yi Qing was once his greatest secret. Now that it had been revealed, it was fortunate for him to be able to survive the revelation of such news. He had been worried about a day like this for a very long time and didn't know what outcome to expect. The situation at the moment was far better than what he had ever imagined. This was supposed to be a catastrophe. Very good. Princess Donghuang nodded and continued, after you return, report to the empty imperial palace. Yes, princess. Everyone bowed and nodded, greatly overjoyed in their hearts. It was a stroke of good luck to be rid of Yi Futian and follow the imperial palace. The teacher and my father are old acquaintances. For the sake of the teacher, I will no longer pursue the matters from today. Princess Donghuang looked at Yi Futian, who was high above the sky. She then turned around and looked into the distance as she continued, from this day forward, Yi Futian is no longer under the jurisdiction of the imperial palace in the divine prefecture. All your grievances are yours to resolve independently. In addition, the teacher has already made his stance known today. Since my father has decided not to interfere with his affairs, the teacher will no longer interfere with ours in the future. The words of Princess Donghuang couldn't be more clear to those cultivators from the various forces of the divine prefecture. Those who had been enemies with Yi Futian snickered in their hearts and understood the significance of the princess's words. This was no less than a declaration of open season on Yi Futian. What she meant was that the teacher from Four Corner Village could no longer stop them. It seemed that the princess was pretty upset about what has transpired today. After all, Yi Futian openly resisted the imperial order and defied her. In addition, as the only daughter of Donghuang the Great, and with Yi Futian being the successor of Emperor Yi Qing, the two of them were destined to be enemies, fateful opponents. Therefore, it was completely reasonable for Princess Donghuang to harbor some grudges toward Yi Futian. The cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy did not look so good. From now on, the cultivators from the Divine Prefecture would have no more worries about the future. Now, without the Lost Clan, Yi Futian's strength would be greatly reduced. Once he left the Ziwei segmentum, he might be hunted by the forces from the Divine Prefecture. Yi Futian was still in control of the Ziwei cultivation court, as well as the inheritance of several great emperors. Now, there was Emperor Yi Qing on top of everything else. So there was no telling how many others would covet what was in Yi Futian's possession. Let's go. After having said that, Princess Donghuang gave the order to leave. The cultivators from the Imperial Palace of Divine Prefecture left with her just as suddenly as she had spoken. People from other top principalities in the Divine Prefecture left with her as well. Without Princess Donghuang here, none of them dared to dawdle any longer in the Ziwei segmentum. After all, this was the territory controlled by Yi Futian, and in it, even those who had survived the second divine tribulation of the Great Path couldn't best him. If Yi Futian wished to hurt them, it could be very bad for them. With shining rays of light, cultivators from all sides withdrew. Soon, Those who cultivated in the divine prefecture disappeared altogether. Cultivators from the human realm left along with them as well. However, the cultivators from the dark world and the empty divine realm were still there. At this time, the leader of the dark world looked at Yi Futian and said, "Although there were some grievances between Renhuang Yi and us, if Renhuang Yi is willing to enter the dark court to cultivate, we will not take any action. Instead, we will protect Renhuang Yi from the persecution of the divine prefecture. The empty divine realm welcomes you as well." The cultivators from two major worlds were not just actively recruiting Yi Futian but were offering to put aside the many grievances that had appeared between them over the years. This was in spite of the fact that Yi Futian had killed many cultivators of the dark world. He was the successor of Emperor Yi Qing. He was tremendously talented, and he had a great emperor standing behind him to boot. He was way too valuable of an asset. The point was that Yi Futian and the imperial palace in the divine prefecture were now on opposing sides. And because of Emperor Yi Qing, they would be mortal enemies with no possibility of reconciliation. If Yi Futian could be groomed as a weapon to be used against the divine prefecture one day, why pass up such a great opportunity? Future prospects aside, even Yi Futian now was already a prize with the strength he possessed and the power he controlled. Yi Futian glanced briefly at the cultivators from these two major worlds. Obviously, he understood their intentions quite well, so he responded without hesitation. "Both of you have spoken up for me today. If something unforeseen happens in the future, I will remember what occurred today." Clearly, this was a soft letdown. "In that case, we will be leaving now." They didn't say anything more. They would be watching how Yi Futian planned to engage with the principalities from the divine prefecture. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2404, Abandoned. Chapter 2404. Abandoned. After the various forces left, Yi Futian descended from the starry sky. The sky was reconstructed, and the starry dimension disappeared. Myriads of stars disappeared from the sight of the crowd along with the silhouette of Ziwei the Great. Yi Futian landed in Ziwei Imperial Palace. Yu Xing came up behind him. The cultivators of Ziwei Imperial Palace and the Heavenly Mandate Academy all gathered around him. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief now that this ordeal had come to an end. However, they still couldn't put their worries to rest completely since danger was still lurking. Right now, they were besieged on all sides. They had even offended the imperial palace of the divine prefecture. The forces from the divine prefecture would no longer have any scruple about attacking Yi Futian and his allies. The former might even join forces to attack them. Of course, their prerequisite was that Yi Futian and his group left the Ziwei segmentum. After all, if they chose to attack Yi Futian in the Ziwei segmentum, they had to be prepared to face annihilation. A gentle breeze blew past, and everyone felt a bit chilly. The cultivators stared at Yi Futian silently. Their journey from now on would most likely be arduous. The various worlds were in chaos, and they were trapped here with a slim chance of breaking out of this predicament in a short time. "We will temporarily abandon the Heavenly Mandate Academy," announced Yi Futian. Immediately, all the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy were overwhelmed with sorrow. They had formed deep bonds with the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Unfortunately, they were forced to abandon it now. Yi Futian instructed, "Lord Taishan, please make a trip to the Heavenly Mandate Academy and make arrangements for the cultivators who are still in the lower worlds to come to the Ziwei segmentum. Then, please destroy the teleportation Grand Matrix." Lord Taishan nodded. He was aware that in doing so, they would completely sever the connection between the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the Ziwei segmentum, abandoning their base at the Heavenly Mandate Academy. All these years, Yi Futian had contributed a lot to the Heavenly Mandate realm and the original realm. He had even been crowned the ruler of the original realm. However, the continual arrival of various forces in the original realm messed up the situation. This recent ordeal further complicated things. Everything had changed. Yi Futian was kicked out of the game. He was but an outsider now. He had to desert his base at the Heavenly Mandate realm and leave the original realm temporarily. Nobody here questioned Yi Futian's motive in doing so. All of them were aware that he was forced to make such a decision. The current Heavenly Mandate Academy was a dangerous place to be in. If they chose to remain in the lower worlds, they would be attacked at any moment. They would naturally not leave behind the teleportation Grand Matrix for their enemies to use. After the rest of their members from the Academy arrived, they had to destroy the Matrix. Lord Taishan swiftly led others to carry out the plan. Yi Futian said, "Right now, the original realm has undergone major changes. Cultivators from various worlds had come to the realm. However, all these things do not concern us now. In the coming years, we can only stay and cultivate in the Z-Way segmentum. Fortunately, there is the Starry Cultivation Court which was left by Z-Way the Great. It is very beneficial for our cultivation. I'll meditate in the Starry Cultivation Court for a period of time. At the same time, I'll help everyone here with your cultivation too." Prior to this, he had quite a few allies from the Divine Prefecture. However, after today's incident, they had left him. After all the forces in the Divine Prefecture were under the command of the Donghuang Imperial Palace. Who would dare go against the Donghuang Imperial Palace and support him? Yi Futian himself also did not wish for his friends to do so. If they did so, they would be dragged into this murky mess. For you, increasing your cultivation plane is indeed the most important matter now, said Emperor Nan. Yi Futian was currently a 7th tier Renhuang. If he cultivated to the 9th tier and relied on the power of the starry sky in battle, even cultivators of Feng Ru's level would not be able to withstand his attacks. Even if he did not do so, once he cultivated to the peak of the Renhuang Plain and relied on the sacred remains of Shenjia the Great Emperor and the divine Guqin of Shenyin the Great, Yi Futian would also certainly be able to unleash even more terrifying might. When the time came, he would no longer be restricted wherever he went. At least when he was against some super powerful cultivators, he would have more power to defend himself. However, the matters of the outside world did not concern them now. Do you want to cultivate in the devil world? Yu Xing asked Yi Futian. If Yi Futian went to the devil world, he would not be restricted by others. Yi Futian shook his head. Over transmitted thoughts, he said to Yu Xing, only we know what happened back then. Now, our identities are unclear. The devil world might have accepted you because your identity is special. However, it is different for me. No matter what I do, I will need to be more cautious. Yu Xing did not say anything. He understood that what Yi Futian said was correct. Only the two of them knew what had happened back then. Yi Futian was never considered an heir of Emperor Yi Qing. Yu Xing's father had been the one who raised Yi Futian. However, he did not teach Yi Futian any cultivation techniques. He only said that Yi Futian was born an emperor. As for Yu Xing, he would become Yi Futian's support. Hence, Yi Futian's identity was definitely not what the outside world imagined it to be. It was not as simple as him being the heir of Emperor Yi Qing. Besides that, the way the Devil Emperor treated Yu Xing, as well as the fact that the Devil Emperor was unwilling to tell Yu Xing his identity, made him suspicious about his own origins. Yi Futian continued advising Yu Xing, "Yu Xing, although I am restricted now, you are from the devil world so that no one will dare touch you. You can still train in the outside world. The original realm has undergone a huge change, and there are various fateful encounters out there. You can venture out and explore with the various cultivators from the devil world to see whether you can claim some fateful encounters for yourself." Yu Xing nodded his head slightly. A cold look flashed past in his eyes as he said, "I will investigate those who spread the rumors." Yu Xing clearly wanted to get back at them. They had ulterior motives for intentionally spreading rumors claiming Yi Futian was related to Emperor Yi Qing. They wanted Yi Futian dead. For now, don't get into large-scale conflicts with the forces of the Divine Prefecture. Both of us need to keep a low profile. When we are sufficiently powerful in the future, we will not need to worry about being unable to seek revenge, said Yi Futian. Yu Xing was somewhat unsatisfied, but he still nodded his head. However, he thought to himself that if he encountered the members of the Divine Prefecture when he was searching for fateful encounters outside, he would not show them mercy. Yi Futian glanced around at the other cultivators and said, I am sorry to have troubled all of you with this. Palace Lord, we have been cultivating in the Ziwei segmentum all this while. Now, you have opened up the cultivation court of Ziwei the Great for us. How can this be considered trouble? Said Renhuang Qin. Xiao Dingtian from the Xiao clan said, the Heavenly Mandate Academy originally rose to prominence because of you. If it weren't for you, whether or not we would be able to survive until today in this chaotic world would be up for debate. How can this be considered trouble? The Ziwei segmentum is much larger than the 9 realms. It's pretty nice to cultivate here. Others also spoke up. Although their current situation was frustrating, recalling everything that had happened, they knew that Yi Futian had already done good enough as he led them forward. It is good to cultivate in seclusion for some time. We can improve our abilities, added Emperor Nan. They would most likely need to cultivate for quite some time. For the foreseeable future, they would not be leaving this place. Donghuang the Great promised to not meddle in your affairs. Once you overcome the divine tribulation, nothing will be able to stop you from going wherever you want, said Fang Gai. He seemed to be comforting Yi Futian. I understand, said Yi Futian as he nodded his head. He glanced over the familiar faces around him. He felt a sense of warmth well up inside him. He still had so many friends standing beside him and supporting him. He had no right to be decadent and slack. In the Heavenly Mandate realm of the original realm, news of the war in the Ziwei segmentum spread. Lord Taixian led all of the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy away and then destroyed the teleportation Grand Matrix. After that, the cultivators from various forces descended upon the Heavenly Mandate realm and occupied the ruins of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. They also began to conquer the Heavenly Mandate City. All the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate realm felt a sense of sadness over this incident. Had the figure of their faith left the Heavenly Mandate realm just like that? He had actually been dealt with by the Imperial Palace. An era had ended. The era of Yi Futian was ended by the Imperial Palace. No one knew what the fate of the Heavenly Mandate realm would be. Now, the cultivators here were at the mercy of the other forces. There would most likely be no one like Yi Futian, whose core tenet was to protect the Heavenly Mandate realm. At the moment, around the ruins of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, many cultivators had gathered. They were from all corners of the Heavenly Mandate realm. An old man had brought along a youth. When the old man saw the scene before him, he sighed. Grandfather, has something happened to Renhuang Yi? Then, who will protect the Heavenly Mandate realm in the future? The youth asked as he looked at the ruins. No, Renhuang Yi has only left temporarily. He will return in the future, replied the old man. However, how many years would it be before the hope of the Heavenly Mandate realm returned? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2405, Seclusion. Chapter 2405. Seclusion. All the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy had migrated to the Ziwei segmentum. Yi Futian ordered them to build a new Heavenly Mandate Academy in Ziwei Imperial, the main city of the Ziwei segmentum. This allowed the disciples of the academy, who followed him all the way here, to have a place for meditation. This would hopefully make up for their loss. At the same time, the core members of the academy could enter Ziwei Imperial Palace freely. Besides that, they were allowed to use the palace, and even the starry cultivation court, for cultivation. Everything proceeded in an orderly manner. After Yi Futian had decided to go into seclusion, he planned to sever the Ziwei segmentum from the original realm. For the next few years, they would quietly cultivate here and stop caring about the matters outside. However, several days later, Yuxing still brought them some news. It was related to the forces involved in spreading the rumors back then. The ancient god clan from the Divine Prefecture was not involved. Instead, the forces involved were the top forces from the Divine Prefecture. On top of that, the Shen clan, Nanhai family, the Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor, and the Donghua Domain Chief's Manor had participated too. After these forces learned of the news, they spread it around immediately, ensuring that Princess Donghuang got wind of it. Actually, Princess Donghuang had known about it beforehand. However, she was forced to meddle in the affair by coming to Ziwei Imperial Palace directly after the news had been spread around. Yi Futian did nothing after learning the truth, but he kept a list of the forces involved in his mind. The vendetta between the Shen clan and him stemmed from what happened between him and the Shen clan of the original realm in the past. His grudges with the Donghua domain chief's manor went without saying. However, he was surprised that the Shangqing domain chief's manor was involved in this too. Even though there was some friction between them, Yi Futian had not expected that the other party would want him dead. From the looks of it, there were indeed many people in the Divine Prefecture who wished for his death. The ones that he knew were only the forces that made their goal apparent. Many other enemies wanted to kill him. Yi Futian did not put much thought into this matter. Now that the ordeal was over, he did not have much to worry about since Hua Jiyu had returned to his side and he had met Yu Sheng. Yi Futian could fully concentrate on cultivating in peace. In the starry cultivation court of Ziwei Imperial Palace, there were many cultivators around. After Yi Futian entered the court, he raised his head and glanced at the endless stars in the sky. Hua Jiyu stood beside him quietly. She followed him here, and they prepared to cultivate together for a period of time. Jiyu, the teachings of the great emperor that you acquired are a little bizarre. During our seclusion this time, I want to work on other aspects aside from improving our cultivation planes. We can rely on each other's cultivation to deepen our understanding of the art of cultivating, Yi Futian said gently. There were no secrets between him and Hua Jiyu. The two of them would share what they had mastered separately so that they could improve together. Hua Jiyu nodded in agreement. I agree. However, this time, we might need to cultivate for a long time. I'm afraid that it will be quite boring, Yi Futian said while staring at her lovingly. We have been apart for decades. There was nothing more painful than our separation. With you by my side now, how could I possibly feel bored? Hua Jiyu replied softly. The two of them exchanged a glance and smiled. Then their figures flashed, and they dashed towards the stars. A lot of people were staring at their silhouettes. Some were envious of their relationship, while some wished for their happiness. After going through countless challenges, the two could finally be with each other now. Even though we have just experienced a huge disaster, it might be a blessing in disguise. Fortune and misfortune are two sides of the same coin, after all. Little brother got rid of one of his worries and can now focus on cultivating. He has Jiyu by his side now too. It can be said that his current situation is rather perfect. Zhuge Mingyue and Gu Donglu stood side by side in the sky as they looked at Yi Futian and Hua Jiyu. A glint of joy flashed in Zhuge Mingyue's eyes as she said this. Gu Donglu nodded and said, Jiyu has been little brother's concern for all these years. Now, he can finally rest his worry and cultivate quietly for a few years. Unfortunately, someone else has to suffer, Zhuge Mingyue sighed while smiling wryly. Gu Donglu looked towards a spot down below upon hearing her words. He saw a beautiful silhouette sitting and meditating there quietly. However, she looked somewhat lonely. In the starry sky above, Yi Futian and Hua Jiyu went to the highest spot. Then, they sat cross-legged in the high heavens while the rest of the cultivators were cultivating down below. Not long after, all the stars lit up. Endless starlight shone on Yi Futian and Hua Jiyu, causing them to glimmer. At the same time, the entire starry cultivation court grew even brighter. Endless starlight rained down, allowing the cultivators beneath to also sense the aura hidden in this place. They could particularly sense the powerful auras hidden in the imperial stars as they were showered in starlight. Lord Taishen, Sky River Great Elder, Emperor Nen Old Ma, and many other cultivators looked at the two silhouettes in the starry sky. Yi Futian was the embodiment of all their hopes. The future of all the cultivators present here depended on him. Lord Taishen and the elders knew that they had little hope of turning the tide themselves. Aside from Yi Futian, most of his companions had also inherited the teachings of the great emperors. Yi Futian, along with Yu Sheng, Hua Jiyu, and Gu Donglu, were the future of this starry world. However, they first needed some time. Yi Futian and the others began cultivating in seclusion in the starry cultivation court of Ziwei Imperial Palace. Meanwhile, in the original realm, storms were stirring up again. The cultivators of the various worlds were fighting over the fateful encounters that appeared. Regardless if they were relics in the heavenly mandate realm or those that appeared in the original realm, all of them were being fought over by the various cultivators. The cultivators from the divine prefecture, the dark world, the empty divine realm, the human realm, and the devil world were in constant friction with each other. Many small-scale conflicts erupted between them. However, they were still cautious towards one another. Therefore, no large-scale battles had occurred. However, the dark world and the empty divine realm were always ready to move. They wanted to attack the divine prefecture many times, yet the human realm seemed to lean towards siding with the divine prefecture. Hence, these two major worlds had yet to seize the opportunity to start a divine war. The original realm was still changing rapidly. This was also one of the reasons why the war had yet to erupt. The various forces wanted to pillage more relics to increase their power. For now, no one wanted to face each other head-on. Yet, as time passed and there were more and more conflicts between them, many cultivators ended up perishing. At the same time, the monstrous Renowangs with exceptional talent were developing more rapidly than before. However, all this seemed unrelated to Yi Futian's group. After several years, in the starry cultivation court of Ziwei Imperial Palace, many cultivators were still cultivating inside. They did not involve themselves with matters of the outside world. They were considered the only top force within the original realm that had not participated in the conflict. Right then, many people looked up high in the sky. Up in the starry sky, many illusory figures appeared. They were all silhouettes of Yi Futian. They seemed to be everywhere, and each one was as real as the original. But beams of sword light shot across and illuminated the starry sky. The various silhouettes stabbed out at the same time in tens of thousands of permutations. Yi Futian was obviously comprehending swordsmanship. Many people were watching from below as he practiced. Everyone seemed to have their own comprehension of what they saw. These past years, aside from comprehending the Great Path and increasing his cultivation plane, Yi Futian also trained in attack techniques. He cultivated a myriad of techniques, many of which were powerful divine techniques passed down from the great emperors. However, since they were not his own power, he could not unleash their full potential. Hence, he needed to rely on his own ability to comprehend the techniques again in order to better utilize them. He then had to merge them, using his powers of the Great Path to make them even stronger. These years, the cultivators in the starry cultivation court witnessed Yi Futian's growth. It was not just Yi Futian, the others were also improving. As the years passed, the outside world changed swiftly without cease. Only within the starry cultivation court did time seem to stop. 10 years felt like a day. Just like that, more than 10 years went by. It seemed to have passed like the snap of one's fingers. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.